Well, good day, Katie. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great. We are in Chicago, Illinois, and today we're going to do a little bit of John Dillinger history, or John Dillinger. We found out that the proper pronunciation is Dillinger, and we're going to kind of show you where his life ended and where he's buried and the kind of crazy story that's attached to his death. Daze with Jordan the Lion and Katie begins right now. So John Dillinger was actually considered to be like a very famous kind of Robin Hood-esque criminal for his day. You see, with the Great Depression in the late 20s, a lot of people lost everything they had or became homeless, and they blamed a lot of it on the banks at the time. And so seeing someone like John Dillinger, who, even though he's very famous for all the banks that he robbed, he actually did it all in like an 18-month span, was caught several times, and managed to escape several times. So there was a big scene right before he came here to Chicago. The year was 1934. It was April, and the feds had been chasing him all over the kind of the middle of the country. He had been doing, things from Florida through all the way up to St. Paul, Minnesota, out to Arizona, and they had tracked him. They actually got a call from an innkeeper in a place called New Bohemia, Wisconsin, saying that Dillinger and his gang were hanging out there. So they went and tried to apprehend him, and once again, he got away. And they didn't really know where he was until a woman in Chicago called them one day. So it was actually a woman named Anna Sage that kind of made this all happen. You see, John Dillinger had come to Chicago and was renting a room from Anna Sage, and she was an immigrant who was potentially going to be deported. And so she called the feds and said, I want to strike a deal with you to help me stay in the country. I will give up John Dillinger. I'm going to a movie with him tomorrow, and I will call you tomorrow and tell you where and when, if we can strike a deal. The feds didn't immediately bite on this because they had people before that had told them that they could deliver John Dillinger, or actually did take them right there, and they still couldn't apprehend him. So they were a little apprehensive at first, but the next day Anna Sage did call and told them that they were going to be going to a movie at the Biograph Theater, Manhattan Melodrama, and they were going to be seeing a post 8 o'clock showing. And so basically the feds, FBI, got as many people as they could, like 24 agents, to be in plain clothes or in suits or whatever, and to surround this theater for that night. So J. Edgar Hoover had started the war on crime when he was hired by Calvin Coolidge to take over the FBI. The FBI was kind of a joke at the time. And so he really was dedicated to cleaning it up, and with all these bank robbers and everybody basically able to do whatever they wanted. At the time, the situation was that V8 engines had become available and Tommy guns, and so gangsters were able to get fast cars, get away. They were able to have faster cars than the sheriffs at the time. And so J. Edgar Hoover had been personally chasing John Dillinger for 18 months trying to apprehend him, and so he put one of his top agents on the case, and Dillinger continued to get away every time. So that night when Dillinger was to come here, the top agent was actually right up here at the box office, and he was waiting in his car, and apparently Dillinger and the two women he was with just walked right on past his car and walked right into the theater. So knowing that there's several, lots of people in the theater, they couldn't do it in there because he could very potentially get away again. They just decided to wait for the 2 hours for Manhattan Melodrama to end. It was a popular movie at the time, starring Clark Gable and William Powell. And so they saw the movie, and like I said, there was agents all over this area, just because he got away so many times, they didn't want to take any chances. They wanted every available agent. So they devised a plan that when Dillinger came out, the top agent would light his cigar right here at the box office, and that would be everyone's sign to encroach in. So Dillinger walked out of the theater with the two women, made a left, and started walking this direction. The man lit his cigar right here. All the FBI started to walk behind him, follow behind him. And as Dillinger made it right about here, he could feel that they were on him, and he turned around and immediately saw one and started running. He started running down this alley, and they said that once he turned around he pulled his weapon, turned around, he was gonna fire, they shot him right here in the alley. So there's actually, as you can see, a mural to him. It says, "All my life I wanted to be a bank robber, carry a gun and wear a mask. Now that it's happened, I guess I'm just about the best bank robber they've ever had, and I sure am happy." John Dillinger. So this was big news. He was so popular at the time because he had done so much in that 18 months that people started to like swarm this street, and they wanted to see his body. And then the funeral home that got his body put him on display so people could come and see him and visit him. So we're gonna go out to his grave, which is actually in Indianapolis, kind of close to where his childhood home was. And I'm gonna tell you the crazy story that is followed him after his death, and how his family actually wanted to dig him up 5 years ago. Can you just imagine that day, 1934, what that would have been like? They finally got him. I mean, walking out these doors, it's crazy. Hello, Indiana. Well, here we are, Crown Hill Funeral Home and Cemetery, Indianapolis, Indiana. Final resting place of John Dillinger. So I read that they've had to replace this main headstone because people constantly are coming out and visiting and like chipping off pieces. So you can see kind of over here, it's pretty rough and stuff, but there's the Dillinger family plot, and he should be one of these right here. Katie found his dad, John Dillinger Sr., and just a few spots ahead is John Dillinger Jr. There he is. Or, I mean, we think he's here. See, I mentioned his father because John's mother died when he was young, and so his father raised him. But when John, was doing a lot, he'd been arrested, he'd escaped and everything, his father knew about all that. One of John's last trips back to the family farm, he gave his dad the fake wooden gun that he made to escape jail, and told his dad, keep this forever, and whenever you need a laugh, pull it out and look at it. So after John died, they put him on display. They supposedly buried him here in the family plot. And then his father went on to go out and do a speaking tour of something called Crime Doesn't Pay. And he would talk about the downside of everything that his son did. And he made another fake gun replica of the one that John gave him, and he would tour around with that. So there's an original out there and there's a fake one out there. But the reason I say we think that John's here is because his other family members 5 years ago were trying to petition to dig him up and see if he indeed was in there, because they have reason to believe that some of the reports, the FBI reports that have come out since his passing and some of the autopsy, they believe it may not be him in here. We do know that John Dillinger hat, or Dillinger, they say that's how it's actually pronounced. We do know that he burned his fingerprints with acid to try and alter them, and we do know that he had plastic surgery. So those two things would, possibly lead someone to believe that it's potentially not him by looking at the last photo. But then also the autopsy said he had brown eyes, which everyone knew John to have blue. And now his family, like I said, as of 5 years ago, they wanted to dig him up. Katie, we thought this was kind of crazy because the family said that's the first time that this cemetery has ever stopped anyone from exhuming a family member.
That's right. They said it's actually usually pretty normal protocol, and it was really the first time that the cemetery really had a problem with it. But I think there's a lot of reasons. Some of it involved some of the family members not necessarily being okay with it.
Half the family wanted it, and the other half didn't want him disturbed. The rumor is that the family was approached by the History Channel and they wanted to film this and make a documentary out of it. So some believe that that's why, because initially, apparently the cemetery gave their approval to do it. You have to have three things. You have to have approval from the health department, family member,
and then approval from
the cemetery. Well, the cemetery they originally gave their consent, but then the family said the FBI came asking the cemetery questions, and then all of a sudden they said the cemetery changed their tune. The cemetery says, we don't want to do it, and this went all the way to court, and the cemetery won, and basically their thoughts were, we don't want to disturb the other
final resting place
people here. We don't want to desecrate a grave after, they just kind of basically said they thought it was unethical for the circumstances and to publicize it. And so, but the family, they have looked at all of the released FBI documents, and they believe that John Dillinger actually survived, that it wasn't him. That's the crazy thing. They don't think he was the one, or they think he might have been, but they think it's potentially possible that he was not the guy, because they say that the FBI in their documents was looking for him all the way into the 60s, like 1961. So it's just a crazy story. They never got it approved, so they've never exhumed him, and I guess we'll just have to assume that he's here. But who knows?
You never know.
He was so popular in his day that they said that, I think that they even mentioned that they would have to break up like 2,000 pounds of concrete that he surrounded in here, because in those days, this was 1934 when he was killed. Bonnie and Clyde were caught right after. So this was like a huge time where the gangsters were popular, and they just kind of thought souvenir hunters might come out, want his body. They know they've chipped away at the headstone, so.
Well, you hate to say it, this was during the Great Depression. I want everyone to realize that. So people were not happy with the bank system.
Yeah, so, this was 34 when this all happened.
John Dillinger was known to be like Robin Hood.
Yeah, they did. They called him Robin Hood.
Glorified him. So I think it's an interesting story.
When he was finally caught in Indiana, he did like a press conference and let people ask questions, and he had his arm around the prosecutor while he answered questions, just
smiling,
to like, just very like debonair guy for his time. But crazy to think that his crime spree was really, he initially had robbed his neighborhood grocer. They gave him 10 years, and then when he came out, all of his crimes were in an 18-month period from 1933 to 1934. Pretty crazy.
That's right.
For his day, he was the most popular one there was, and they romanticized him a lot because he was credited as on one of his escapes as killing a law enforcement officer, but the family actually says they can prove that he did not do that. So Dillinger was different in regard that he didn't like to kill people. It was said that he would rob banks because he was trying to get money to buy guns to smuggle into the prison to get his friends out. So he never wanted to hurt anybody unless his life was in danger. So the Robin Hood of bank robbers right here, John Dillinger. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next time. Have a great night. Goodbye.